Test, test, test. There we go. All right. Let me move some stuff over here, everybody. Wait for people to trickle in, and I think we should be good for the stream here. Let me go over here very fast, and I think we are going to be good. All right. 1 second, guys. I know people are just going to be joining the stream here any minute. What I'm going to be doing today, first of all, is just to double check that my internet service is very good because I got a new Ethernet cord and want to make sure the stream is at tip-top shape. It looks like so far the download speed is actually pretty good. And then after that, we're going to be going over some Neuralink stuff as far as what Elon Musk is working on one of his other companies here that's actually not Tesla, okay? Now, I know this is more of a kind of surprise stream here, so you guys probably weren't alerted until the last few seconds, I would assume. But let me give this a look here. So far, so good. All right. My Wi-Fi speed is in tip-top shape, everybody. Now, I know people are just streaming in here, so let me just reiterate what I just said because I know I didn't have the countdown timer like normal because I'm using this background compared to what I normally use. And it'll go to the normal one. You guys won't see all this green stuff on the next page here. But today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin booming, Jerome Powell, going a little less hawkish here going into December, which kind of gave the market a massive boost. And for those of you guys that took some of those call examples that we did yesterday that we talked about last night, I mean, I did a little bit of that this morning, specifically with Tesla. I'm already out of my Tesla position, but I think I probably could have held on a little bit longer. The conservative trader in me just told me to get out while I could because I had made a pretty nice profit for just holding for really all about like 5-6 hours. Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit more here as well. But what I'm waiting for, everybody, is over here. We're going to be watching part of the Neuralink stream today. That's going to be pretty fun. I want to see what happens here. You can't see my little heads blocking it, but we have about 2 minutes left. I will be interested to see how we are able to. I just want to see what they're up to. This seems like it's going to be really cool. I see Elon tweeting about it online, and so I want to go over here. Let me see if I can find Elon's tweets. Us Wall Street Silver. No, there you go. This is it right here. So exciting Neuralink update in 30 minutes. I want to see what's going on here. But before this meeting takes off or this event takes off, and we'll be watching that, we got to talk about Bitcoin a little bit here. I got the poll question, so make sure you guys answer that poll question here. And hey, Max, happy to see you back. What we're going to be what we need to focus on right now as far as Bitcoin is concerned, if you guys watched the video earlier, you guys already know this, or if you guys have been watching for a while, we just need to get back above this 17,585 level. Now, this is Bitcoin versus the US dollar. I think the majority of you guys are trading Bitcoin to Tether. So that number for you guys is going to be a little bit higher, around 17,622, like right there. If Bitcoin can get back above that level, we have the opportunity to start pumping back up to at least 18,000, maybe a high of 19,500, unless we have some good news to keep on propping us up. At this point in time, what I see on Apple here is, let me just zoom out a little bit, a pretty aggressive uptrend, and it hasn't had an opportunity to cool off just yet. Now, for any lungs that I have, I'm really just watching this very basic trend line. I'm not trying to make this more complicated than it has to be. As long as we continue on this upward trend, I'm happy to continue holding some of my longs. If we start to fall and break down, that's where I start to get a little bit more concerned about where Bitcoin could be going, especially during this weekend. Tomorrow's Thursday, I believe. Sorry, guys. Yeah, tomorrow's Thursday. Then we got Friday, some jobs reports coming out. I really want to see Bitcoin continue on this grind, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think we might have one day of going sideways, maybe one day of a dip, and on the weekend we curl back up and do something more of a dip and rip if we are going to retest this support level or the former support level of 17,622 and then eventually have to come back up and test the 200 weekly moving average. Now, we've been going sideways long enough, and just so you guys can see what I'm talking about here, we've been going sideways for about 21 days so far. We now have an opportunity on the 4-hour chart to have a golden cross between both the 20 moving average, the 50 moving average, crossing above the 200 here. That's what I would love to see. The last time we had one after a major drop, we did have a few good days of just really solid gains. You can see there was some volatility here as well. However, I'm willing to hold through that volatility because usually it ends up being pretty well, and you guys are just going to be looking for those specific breakdown points, right? This one was right here. There's a breakdown point. Another one, if you were going straight from that point right there, you would have to open the daily chart to kind of get a better example of that one here. Oh no, we did break down below that one. That was a fake out right there. Basically, we had this uptrend here. That is a pretty pesky fake out there, though. And on the daily chart here, if we are able to break out, we should be able to have a death cross. It's gonna be a golden cross between the 20-day and the 50-day moving averages right here. For now, 17,622 Bitcoin to Tether. That's what I care about personally. Now, as far as a lot of other currencies out there, they've all had really monumental gains over the past 24, 48 hours. You can see this is from yesterday. This is from earlier today as far as Jerome Powell talking. And since then, we've been creeping up very, very slowly. Not much has actually been going on, and that's perfectly fine. If you guys are looking for some solid resistance levels, I think the level that's going to work best for you guys right now is most likely just going to be the trend-based fib levels. So go high, go low, and see what you guys can find. Some resistance, and what do you know, just some resistance a few minutes ago. So if you guys are going off after that method, you guys are pretty solid right now. If you guys are using another Fibonacci extension level, by all means, go for it. As long as it's showing signs of progress, keep on using it. This one's been pretty accurate so far since yesterday, so that's why I keep it up on the screen. Well, not for my other charts, I do. But yeah, so resistance, and it just hit this resistance up here around 17,240. It's working fairly well if you guys are trying to scale out. If you guys are trying to buy in, just be a little bit more careful. Move that stop loss up a little bit because this is going to be a little bit choppy over the next 48 hours as the market tries to maybe correct itself just a little bit after having an amazing day. If we go over here to FinViz very fast, you can just see how crazy the market was. We had talked about buying some Tesla 190 calls that expire this Friday if you're really bullish, or next Friday if you're more conservative like I am. And those calls did absolutely amazing today, and they presented you an opportunity to buy in before Jerome Powell came out and talked a little bit. A higher risk play if you guys traded any options today. It was definitely a higher risk, but I do want to go over Tesla very fast because I know a lot of you guys were interested in that trade, especially because I might have been a little bit more giddy about it. So let's go over here to Tesla very fast. Did I think it was going to go up 7.5%, 8% today? No, not at all. Not my expectations. However, if we go over here to the 4-hour chart, we were talking a little bit about a inverse head and shoulders here, which I thought might be a little bit nicer. But you can see a shoulder here, and then one of those uglier breakouts because I thought we might actually like pop up a little bit more here. But anyway, if you guys did, let me go to the 15-minute chart. Let's go over to extended trading hours. There we go. If you guys did buy here in this kind of choppy zone before the breakout occurred, regardless of what breakout you guys are looking for, like something like that, or if you guys are just looking for it to hold the support levels down here, um, my price target was really just around 190, right around there where it started to get knocked back down. It kept on going up towards the end of the day. If you guys want to keep on holding this, most of you guys probably are. Just be careful. Keep, stick to your guns and follow your own plan. I think the majority of you guys, if you guys are going off of just some basic technical analysis here, you guys are just hoping for around $202. And I think the price target we were talking about here, if you want to get more aggressive, if you are holding them until next week, those ones are going to be more around 208 to 220. I'm thinking more 211, I think is what I was hoping for here. And that kind of matches up with some of the resistance you see over here on the $200 level and right here at 203. And if you want to get a little bit higher, right around here around 210. Tesla's looking very, very good. I'm just doing more day trading than swing trading right now, so I'm not really confident enough to hold a lot of assets overnight. That's a me problem. That's not a you problem. You guys don't have to follow me along with that. You guys just know I'm more of a conservative trader, and right now the majority of my profits come from day trading because the data says I'm better at day trading than swing trading right now, which sucks. But day trading is way more fun if you ask me, just way more risky. But if the data says I'm better at it, so be it. Now, a couple other things here today. You can kind of see the dollar index doing a whole bunch of wild stuff today, having a big spike, a double top here, and then just completely breaking down. Jerome Powell was just like faking out the market left and right here. It's fine, but I was pretty. I was watching CNBC live today, and it was absolutely hilarious to watch how fast the market was reacting. One other thing here, if you guys haven't checked it out, there was an interview today that was on CNBC, but I think it was a part of the New York Times Forum. And Sam Bankman-Fried was interviewed by one of the hosts of CNBC. Now, personally, I thought it was a terrible interview and the questions really weren't that good. However, I believe if he would have asked harder questions, Sam would have just probably hopped off the feed, or so to speak, and just tried to ghost him. So I get what the guy was trying to do, but I don't think we really learned much from that. Although maybe I'm not the best person to kind of see how things worked out. Now, we are currently waiting for Neuralink because I do want to watch this with you guys today. Normally, we just talk about crypto and nothing's really changed in the last 24 hours besides people just realizing that the Federal Reserve is going to most likely do the 50 basis point rate hike next month, uh, December. So I wanted to watch this a little bit, then go back to crypto over the next few minutes. But I wanted to let you guys know that I'm probably just, you can see Ethereum here on the 15, hit that price target that we were talking about very, very well. It's actually gotten a little bit of a reversal there. It did pop up above it slightly here, so it wasn't an exact target. But if you sold here, I think you guys are, I think you guys are pretty happy if you guys were able to meet that 1306 target. Okay. Now, Loki's really excited because it is currently snowing a lot outside over here where I live, and he just wants to go outside a lot, and he's bringing his toys over here to let me know that he wants to go outside and play very, very much, which we will be doing a lot after the stream. He's going to be outside for like 2 hours. I need to get bundled up, Jack. You okay? He just hit his head on the bottom of the desk. But yeah, so we're going to be doing that later on tonight. He's in a very, very festive mood. Maybe he knows it's Christmas season or whatnot. But so Ethereum is still in this nice uptrend right now. This is not the time that I want to be buying Ethereum personally. I would actually just wait for maybe a dip that might happen. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I would wait for a dip and give these moving averages a little bit more time here to have an opportunity, like on the Bitcoin charts, to have the 20 and the 50 moving averages actually break above those 200s to give us a few consistent golden crosses. All right. Ethereum Classic here did fine. You can see we're still in the same type of uptrend here. Until we break down, I'm going to be fine. We're just in a level of resistance. You're going to see a lot of coins in the same predicament where they're just chilling in a nice resistance zone. Not so much of a hard level, but just a zone of people taking profits after they might have bought on this way back up, or maybe after they bought over here. If you guys like to do, I can just give it the technicals here. Again, Fibonacci extension levels. Usually, this is the high point, this is the low. They'll give you a few opportunities to say, hey, wow, this is a clear zone for me to start scaling out. Looks like there was two over the past few days. The green line here, the green line there. Red line, you could have taken it, obviously, but I mean, small profits there. Another batch of profits here. Another batch of profits here. Another batch of profits here, especially if you were to double down somewhere along this path and maybe on a breakout or something, okay? So the technicals are very simple right now, and that's very, very good. When you have a lot of day traders in a market like this, it makes it so much easier to actually get some day trading done because everybody's day trading, everybody's waiting for the same patterns, everybody's looking at those same indicators, and it just makes the whole market flow a lot easier, and it's harder for whales to manipulate it if people aren't just going wild left and right? So some good news out there. If you guys want me to check out any coins, feel free to let me know over the next few hour or so. Dogecoin, we can watch this as well. Maybe I should just better clean this up a little bit as well. We don't need to have all that gunk on there. Let's go to the 4-hour chart for Doge. Magnet. That's the new one for now. Dogecoin is getting closer to breaking down. Just like a lot of other coins out there, we're back into that resistance zone where we're just trying to break above 11 cents. And then from there, we actually have an opportunity to go up to 13, 14, 15 cents again, which I didn't think was going to happen unless we had some really good news in Elon tweeting. We haven't had Elon mentioning it so much, but we have had some really good news, especially coming out of Jerome Powell's mouth, and the fact that people are still more bullish than ever that Dogecoin is going to do well because Elon did talk about it just about a month ago now, I believe it is. He might have talked about it since a little bit more, okay? And hey, Axel, happy to see you. Hey, Bideford, hope you guys are doing well. Rodriguez can. Sorry about the late notifications. I posted too many videos today, and one of my videos ended up bombing because middle of the day, I didn't realize it. If you guys go on Twitter, you guys will see that, let's see if we go here to trending. YouTube was down for part of the day. I guess it's not trending anymore now. But it was trending on YouTube called YouTube Down or something like that. And basically, I posted a video and nobody could watch it because YouTube was having issues. And I was almost afraid the stream wasn't going to work today because YouTube was having issues. So let's see how all this works out. And hey, Rodriguez, can I check Target? And hey, Steve, hey, Crypto Indiana or IND, happy to see you back. Can I check Target? Yeah, let's talk about that very fast. And basically, what I'm basically waiting for is Neuralink to start their stream, and I haven't seen them start their stream yet. It was supposed to start at 6, just like most companies. They're running behind schedule, but I am very interested to see how this works out. Now, for as far as Target's concerned, this one's pretty interesting because it's not in my buying zone or selling zone as far as swing trading. It's primarily a day trading option for me at this point in time, and I think you can see why here, right? You have that strong level of support. If it comes down here, I'm happy to start buying it up with a very tight stop loss using that trend line as support. But on the flip side right here, just a couple weeks ago, we had another high. Okay. Now, what we had was pretty interesting. We had a death cross and then it came back up here for a golden cross. And we had some remnants of that death cross. So you can see some very volatile moves here. You're getting some mixed signals, which makes this a little bit more difficult to trade. I would ignore the moving averages right now, except for to tell you there was an opportunity for a golden cross on these. This is a weekly chart, okay? So if we finish off the week strong, which I think we can, especially Thursday and Friday, we could see Target get back up here to the mid 170s. That's what I prefer to get back up to. Anything above 178, awesome. That'd be a separate trade on a breakout. I don't want to open myself up to too much risk here. I would just buy now, sell over the next few days, maybe even Monday, Tuesday, and be happy with where the money takes me. But normally I like to buy at supports and not really in this middle zone. However, the trend right now with all this good news we've been having suggests we might go a little bit higher. But personally, I'd wait for the breakout for a more bullish play. Or if you want to do day trading instead of swing trading in the middle here, I think day trading is where your luck is going to be. So if we go over here to an hour chart, I would actually be looking for puts and calls. So puts, if we start breaking down below this, a short day trade, maybe you're only going to be in there for about an hour to 2 hours. That's how I would like to play this. If you kind of zoom out a little bit, maybe just put on a 4-hour chart just so you can see. As far as like, pop-up levels and things like that, I really don't see a reason to be buying calls just yet, besides the news that we just had from Jerome Powell. And I normally don't like to trade solely on news here. Um, if I go back a little bit and maybe let's go to the lows over here. There you go. You can see that since then, wasn't very responsive here. Well, a little bit responsive here, not very responsive here, uh, not very responsive here, or here, not really responsive, maybe a little bit right there. A little bit more responsive now as far as resistance levels, but I'm not getting the feeling that this is going to be something that I really want to trust with some of those support and resistance levels right now. So it's a little bit more iffy. I'd be much more enthusiastic about buying puts on this personally, but I would want to wait for a breakdown, and it would only be a day trade. If you want something a little bit longer, I would wait for either a full breakout or a full breakdown. Both of those would be really good opportunities for Target because once this thing starts moving, it starts moving. So from this high up here to this low, it moved about 20%. That is massive gains. And this is a 4-hour chart, so this took about 2 months or so. So you're most likely going to be playing these short-term swings for like a week, or if you want something else, a little pivot point right there. Maybe it might work better if we go from this pivot point to this. That might work out, but then we broke that low, so it could be a little bit uglier. I haven't actually checked out Target in a hot minute. So this one, responsive, a little, not responsive, responsive, not responsive, responsive. Maybe you might have a little bit more resistance around 168 or so. And, it's okay. I'm still a bit more worried about it. I would need more data on it. Let me just do this very fast. Let me just add a MACD. If we have a crossover, maybe that could help us out. In Neuralink, still nothing. Gotta love how companies, I gotta be on time. They don't gotta be on time. Well, I set the times. So do they. So let's in this scenario, probably best to see. We've had the crossover a while ago. That was been good. On the daily chart, we just had the crossover now. So that's a bullish sign for you right there. If anything, if I were going to do calls, they'd be day trading calls, probably try to buy a dip on open, and that dip might be somewhere around $166.25. So about 75, maybe 60 cents below where it is now. And then if it does break down below this trend line, I just flip it for a put, and I just try to recoup some losses from that maybe messed up call, and then I end up walking with a profit. So I would have a pretty long plan there. But Target doesn't seem bad. There's nothing really wrong about it. It's just a lack of I want to buy this. There's a lack of motivation for me on this one until We either break down, well, breakdown point one, breakdown point two, or breakout point three. Otherwise, I'm going to be doing very small day trades. And even on this first breakout, this isn't going to be a swing trade down here. It'll just be a 1 hour play, maybe 2 hour play if the market's gradually going down all day like it kind of did today. See how it did like that? If the market's doing that but going down, then maybe I'd hold it for more than an hour, but I would only be holding it for a short amount of time here, okay? Um, or you could try to buy towards the end of the day and just flip it for 1 day. That may be more risky, but you don't have to worry about pattern day trading rules if you go down that route, okay? Much more risky, though. All right, let's go right here. My YouTube kept shutting down after 1 minute. Yeah, I was hearing there was a lot of problems. All my views just went down like by half or by like by 60, 70%. No, like 60% or so. And so like I was having so many views per minute on my videos, and all of a sudden I just saw that the charts go down, down, down. I thought something was going wrong. And lo and behold, it was just YouTube having some issues there. Let me do a quick refresh on Neuralink very fast. Nope. I'm interested to see what they have, but they're 16 minutes late. Got to be cordial here. And hey, crypto, you link coin. I'll only do one, but I can do link coin for you very fast. Let me see what's going on here. There we go. Link to Tether. Wow, this has really just been really choppy since we had those June lows over here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's summer lows, not even June lows, just summer lows. Doesn't really give me a reason to be buying this right now. Maybe it's broken above the 20-week moving average. Maybe you can try to hold that above that. But I'm looking at it right now, and just from the weekly chart perspective, I see the buying zone, I see the selling zone, and we're kind of in the middle. So I don't really feel like I need to buy, and I don't feel like I need to take profits before it goes back down here. So let me go over here to the daily chart and see what I can find out. Oscillator looks like it's getting more into oversold territories. That makes sense after the big day today. A little bit of a buying signal, but that was over here before this last pop. In order to buy Link, which I still think is in a very nice uptrend right here, I would need it to come back down, break down, and then give me a buying opportunity. If you're already in it, I still see potential to keep on holding, but I would have a pretty tight stop loss right now. For today, that would be somewhere around, around $7.25 after the last few days that have been good. That might be a stop loss of around 4.5 to 5%. Not bad. And if you guys did buy over here in that more general buying zone, if you guys can see that, I would have already been taking profits off of the last few days. So I don't know exactly how accurate this one's going to be either, because Chainlink has been going more sideways than anything. But we have a high and we have a low. You can see if we go off of the old one here, we're kind of matching it up pretty well. But I would have to say, I guess now we're probably going down that low. A little bit of resistance there, a little bit of resistance there. We haven't really reached up there just yet. That may be something you're looking at as well. Right now, since this one's been working a little bit better, I would say, okay, we fell down, but we're back up and running here. I would probably have a price target of 831 all the way up to 886 if it goes higher than that, which I don't think it will. Maybe you have a little bit left to scale up by that point, but it would have to have a pullback well before that happens, and I'd want to get out before that pullback just because we don't know if bad news is going to happen. We're still talking about the railroad strike. For what it sounds like, it seems like the railroad strike is going to be averted. I don't know how Congress is going to do it. It seems like there may be a hiccup over how many days to give them for sick leave, as far as Republicans and Democrats are concerned in the Senate. And if they do get this deal forced down their throats, the unions, I'm not entirely sure that we're going to be free of disruption. We may just not hear about it from the news because overall the deal is going to be done. They're going to be forced to go back to work with what they perceive to be a bad deal. So that's one of my concerns here for a lot of these different coins. One thing I did want to talk to you guys about here is I ran a poll on Reddit during on one of the railroading pages. Let me see if I can find it very fast. Let me go over here. Oh god, I don't use Reddit enough. Profile. Okay, so I ran a poll here. and I voted accept the deal and keep working because I didn't know any better. But I asked, what happens if the final bill is passed with no sick leave? And I went on to say, I'm curious what everyone thinks because it looks like people will accept the deal with the 7 days of sick leave. But if that isn't like the sick leave isn't part of the deal, things get more complicated. And only 179 people voted, but that's a pretty good little voting tally if you're just asking some people online that are all in the railroad industry. Um, 41% said accept the deal and keep working. 43% said wait for back pay and quit. That means they're going to get their back pay for the raises over the past, the raise that they didn't get during COVID, and then just quit. So that's like 43. 62 people said, the majority said strike anyway, which is surprising to me. And 33 said no idea. So that's just kind of a small little sample size. There's no science behind me polling specific people. All it is me going to our railroading and just asking these guys, hey, if you guys don't get this deal the way you want to, what do you think is going to happen, or what may you do? And it seems like 33 say no idea, 62 say strike anyway, 43 say wait for back pay and quit, and 41 say accept the deal and keep working. If people really do wait for the back pay and quit or strike anyway, that still leads to a lot of pain in the markets. However, if people just say, hey, accept the deal and keep working, then oh, it's on. There you go. You guys can hear it. Then we'll go to when they're actually playing something. Then we have no problems. The market keeps on coasting up for maybe a nice December rally. However, if it's not like that, it'll be pretty rough. Okay. All right. So we're watching the Neuralink thing right here. As soon as they start doing something, I'll be happy to show it to you guys. But right now, they're not doing doing anything. Okay. All right. What's right here? Your poll is not moving up. I don't know how to fix that. For me, it's on the top. You might have to refresh the app or refresh the page. It could be something to do with how YouTube's been messing up today for a lot of folks out there. Here, I was asking about it because it didn't move today with the market, so I thought it was most likely for it to come down. It's on the verge of a breakdown right now. You see Bitcoin getting testing resistance right now and just getting knocked back down a little bit. Usually I want to look at the 4-hour charts for these so you can kind of see what's going on. I don't know if I had any bad news or anything. I wasn't watching Target today. Let me go over here very fast. Actually, you could see that Walmart was down today too. Actually, you could see consumer defensive not really giving you the best quality of the day. You can see some of my oil stocks like PXD. I like that one a lot. That one was down a little bit, 2% today. ConocoPhillips was down a little bit here as well. I'll make sure nothing's still happening there. But let me go over here very fast. I don't think Target was as oversold as a lot of these tech plays here. I've been putting a lot of my money in as far as long-term stocks and energy and healthcare. And I guess financial services as well, but that's only because high interest rates benefit banks. Tech has been where I've been like trying to buy back in slowly. And now finally my Amazon buy that I did a couple weeks ago is finally back in profit. I'm probably sure it's going to be going back down below that soon enough. But if we go over here to Target very fast, I mean, it's been pretty down around these levels since all the way back in June here. Looks like they had bad reports, still making some good money. Short float isn't too concerning. Yeah, no bad news. I just feel like people weren't too excited about it. Maybe the fact that interest rates are going to be going up doesn't really help them out too much. Or maybe it could just be a fear of this railroad strike. Who knows? But yeah, there definitely seems like they have room to pop. But I wouldn't try to play the pop. I would try to play the breakdown instead. There seems to be more money to be made there, especially if you're going to be buying puts here. And Neuralink is still just playing music. I don't know if the music is allowed. I would assume it is if it's playing on Neuralink. But somehow if YouTube notices that I'm playing wrong music, they will just like flat out stop the stream, give me a strike, and I won't be able to stream for like a week. It's pretty terrible. And they would take down the 24-hour stream for that entire week as well, which would just be bleh. And I wouldn't be able to post anything for a whole week. So it gets pretty annoying at times. I would like to short link for the next hour. Thoughts? I mean, I would have tried to time with Bitcoin going up against its resistance zone. So you would have maybe bought this 5 minutes, like 2 hours ago. But I think you still got some time here. I just don't think you're going to be I don't know if it's going to be better to short this for an hour or maybe just 15 minutes or so. What I'm looking at right now, as far as Bitcoin's concerned, is like, hey, maybe we have a pop right here, and that's what's kind of concerning me right now as far as shorting any other coins out there. So if you wanted to short right now, as far as Link is concerned, yes, it's still an oversold, overbought type of area. You just may see a little bit more choppiness over the next half an hour or so before you really start to get some more of those lucrative profits there. Because you're really going to be hoping that since we just spent all this energy to kind of have a big boom today, that we're going to have a pretty decent pullback today, maybe tomorrow, and then later today, excuse me, and then tomorrow, and then maybe we have that dip and rip come weekend time where we're going to be testing out the 17,622 level. Unless we have some really fantastic news coming out today, which I just don't know if that's actually going to happen here. Neuralink, what are you doing? I want to see what you're doing. Apparently, there's some trials starting next year, but I really want to see what they're working on because when people talk about Elon and his companies and his little empire that he's been able to build up, people talk about, I guess, Twitter now, SpaceX, and Tesla. People don't normally talk about much else besides that. And this Neuralink project has been a little bit of I've been passionately watching it. I'm just kind of trying to figure out more about it, and I just haven't had the time, frankly, to do that. So when I see these types of events, I'm like, oh yeah, now I can see what they're actually trying to do and how far the technology has actually gone so far. There we go. All right, make a little move here. There we go. Okay, not bad. All right. Oh, here we go. Welcome to Show and Tell. Oh, it's still music. Well, at least it's playing a nice little cool brain thing. That's actually pretty chill. Maybe I should get that for my little that's what I should get for my little intro for the streams and whatnot. That's actually pretty chill. So still nothing here, but at least they got the music going. Says starting soon. Let's check out Twitter very fast. I don't know if there's any more updates on it. Is YouTube down? Yeah, I was doing that very fast. Marco Rubio. Oh yeah, I made a video about this morning. Elon. There we go. Any more news besides that? Nope. I mean, he's probably busy talking about that event, or he's probably going to be at the event. The cool thing about having a West Coast company is it's actually happening during West Coast time. So it's like 9:30 Eastern time right now, which is a little bit later than I want to be streaming right now, because I want to make sure the East Coast guys can watch it as well. But we'll see how it turns out. I'm excited to see what they're actually working on. I don't know if you guys have been following Neuralink or not. There you go. And thanks, Biden, I appreciate it. I know the chat's really quiet today. These quiet days are the days where I sign off a little bit early because I know everybody's probably exhausted with their day, exhausted with work, and they don't have many questions. Let's see. You can see how, you saw how Loki was jumping up on me all through the past few minutes. He's laying down, passed out. All the energy just kind of got out of his system here. So, okay, let's keep watching Bitcoin, I guess, for the next few minutes here. And as Neuralink kind of has their thing going on, I'll let you guys know. It says, welcome to Show and Tell. And then I think it goes back to that brain little thing here. If this actually changes up in the next few minutes or so, I'll let you know. But I think, yeah, it just goes right back to where it was before. It's almost like one of those, like you're calling support, and then they say, we value you very much, and then they go back to playing the music. And then 9 minutes goes by, then they say, hey, we value you a lot. And then they keep on playing the music again. That's what this is like for Neuralink right now. All right. I did find this interesting. Just so you guys know, I was kind of worried about what was going on with Apple and Twitter over the past few days. And Elon Musk was invited out to Apple by Tim Cook. And I guess he was told that, among other things, we resolved the misunderstanding about Twitter potentially being removed from the App Store. Tim was clear that Apple never considered doing so. So that's kind of nice. That means there's not going to be any problems there. There might be still some problems as far as Europe and Twitter, but we all got to deal with Europe because they're a little bit more heavy on the regulation side. Let me go over here. Anything else? No. I'll move that out of the way as well. There you go. So we can watch Bitcoin trade for the next few minutes. I just really want to watch. I really want to watch this Neuralink show, but it's not popping up fast enough for me. But we'll give it a few seconds here. There we go. All right. Is anything popping right now? I see ApeCoin's coming down quite a bit, but I think that's just because it had a really great week. You see this nice little boom. It just had a small breakdown there, and it just kept on going. Even a smaller breakdown right there, and that's the smaller trend. What's going on here? Oh, see, sometimes you just got to zoom out. It's just running into an old support level that's now turned into resistance. Same thing with which we talked about Bitcoin here. Not so much this yellow line, although the yellow line was a level of support for 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts, 5 attempts, 6 attempts. Um, that was a strong support level. Support level now is resistance level, but we also had to deal with this resistance level right here as far as this trend line. Let me go over here very fast. Let me change that back up a little bit. There you go. Yeah. So that actually makes a lot of sense. This is what I'm hoping Bitcoin doesn't do, but I think Bitcoin may do over the next few days, have a slight pullback from here and then do that dip and rip that we talked about a few minutes ago. Let's see. Could you check Doge for me and let me know what your thoughts are? Yeah, Doge isn't doing anything too complicated right now. Let me just double check that. It's just on this general uptrend on the day chart. This uptrend is a little bit too aggressive for me, so I do think it's going to have to pull back eventually here. But I would wait until that breakdown occurs before really starting to say, "Oh my gosh, I gotta get a Dogecoin before it drops," and people start panicking and selling off. It's a really beautiful uptrend right now. Um, Once you break down below that, I'm going to be pretty bearish on it, at least for the next few hours. And then I would hope that I can at least go sideways and not just come all the way back down like this or like we just saw ApeCoin do, okay? Now, as far as your resistance levels and things like that, oh boy, there's a few things you can do here, but it's kind of messy because you see how volatile Dogecoin has been over the past few days and past few hours. So you might go from these lows to highs right here. We did break above this last night. We had some resistance there. That next big price target, if we're able to make it, is going to be around 12 cents. And that first resistance level that we just broke above last night was around 11 cents. We just managed to come back down a little bit since then. So you got 12 cents, then you got 13 and a half almost. 13, yeah, 13 and a half almost, and then you got like 16 up here. For now, I wouldn't really feel awesome about buying this until we actually come closer to this trend line. And then after we come close to the trend line, I'll use it as this level of support and a stop loss to kind of help me out a little bit more. No, I want to watch this. There's 25,000 people watching this right now, and I really want to see what's going on. But they always work into the background and stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm being cautious with it. But yeah, it's still a nice uptrend. I don't really see a reason to be buying a whole bunch right now, trying to play this next big pop. You can, but I would probably wait for it to come back down a little bit more if it can. And you could already see right here, at least on this 2 hour chart here, we're currently running up against this whole zone of resistance. So we got resistance 1, resistance 2, and now we've gotten rejected 3 times from this level. If we're not able to break out above it, we're eventually just going to have to come back down here, retest around 9.5 cents to 9 cents, which would be pretty big loss as far as Dogecoin is concerned, and that might kill the rally. But I still think it's mostly up to Bitcoin. We just need to see Dogecoin stay strong and stay going at least sideways here. Even if Bitcoin decides to go down a little bit more, you're going to want to see Dogecoin continue just to grind. Dogecoin needs a lot of people continually buying it to really push it up because it has such a high market cap these days. What's that? Number 8 still, almost a $14 billion market cap. It's up like 26% in the last 7 days. Meanwhile, XRP is only at 5. ADA is actually down a little bit. Polygon's only at 4. Polkadot's down 0.5%. It's much higher than a lot of other coins. It's had a lot of growth over the past few weeks when a lot of other coins haven't. That's a better way to say it. There we go. Neuralink. Oh my gosh, it is just like the call center. There we go. Let's go back over here to the 1. And there you go. We just tapped on the support level right there. This is a very small trend line. It doesn't have a lot of impact. I want you guys to understand this. But basically, if you were going to do a day trade, it would have just happened right there. Okay. That's my strategy. And then you would have used it as a stop loss. Okay. That's how I would have looked at it. You could also be doing some stop losses and trades on Ethereum, which is usually easier to trade than Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is very simple, and everybody knows Bitcoin, right? I guess everybody knows Ethereum too. If think I should short Doge right now for the pullback, just be careful of the support levels. But yeah, you can short it. I like to try to time my shorts with Bitcoin so I don't open myself up to too much risk. So right now it's already come down a little bit too much. I would have done it just a couple hours ago when Bitcoin was facing that resistance level, then got rejected. That's usually how I play it. Right now, if you're looking to do Dogecoin, you're primarily just waiting for a breakdown on a pretty aggressive trend line here. So you can short right now, and that's perfectly fine. I'd be shorting right now rather than longing right now. That is 100% true. And then I would probably have a stop loss just way back up here towards the highs. That's how I'd have to look at it. If I wanted to take that bite, stop loss around 11 cents. Maybe I can move it down a little bit more if you want to be a little more cautious, like 0.108 or something. That stop loss would give you like a 5x leverage. That would mean that you lost around, let's just round it up to 4, I guess. Yeah, 4, yeah. So you might be risking 20%, but if it manages to come back down here to that next support level, you're looking at around, yeah, 20, 25%. See, it's not even worth it at that point if you ask me. Maybe if you move the stop loss down just a little bit more. But yeah, uh, I would be happy to start shorting this right now, but not even happy, but just more of I would have liked to time it over here when Bitcoin itself was facing some stiff resistance levels. Now you can, there's just more risk on top of it, okay? Especially because Bitcoin itself is at a resistance level right now, and we're hoping that it can hold that level and bounce back off. If Bitcoin decides to bounce, or at least go another half an hour or so of going sideways and up, that can mean you're holding your short longer than you might otherwise want to. So, shorting seems to be the way to go. Just make sure you have your setup, your stop loss and target prices set up as well before you make that trade. But yeah, shorting seems fine. Neuralink is live. Oh no, it's not yet. What do you call? I mean, it's live, but not like not they're not doing the video thing just yet here. Maybe if I refresh the page here. Nope. They got the chart disabled for the stream though. But what do you call? We're keeping track of it here. Welcome to show and tell. I knew what it was going to be, but I like doing this like that. But yeah, it should be there pretty soon. Bitcoin right now, like I would have timed it when Bitcoin was flirting with this resistance level up here, or if Bitcoin was flirting with the resistance level over here. But you can see we really just popped above that. That was a weak sign if you were going to short. You don't want to short during that type of aggressive move like that, especially as you kind of zoom out a little bit more. Boom, 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 boom. No, you want to see a hard stop right there. And this had multiple stops, like 1, 2, 3, all the levels of resistance. You can see it broke down below the neckline, came back up to test out, and then we kept on going down. That's your basic double top pattern right there. So if you try to make that same trade around, I guess, 1655 on Dogecoin, that would have been around. Oh, Dogecoin was already falling at that point. Yeah, it would have actually just been right around here. So Dogecoin peaked a little too early. But overall, I would have rather be shorting here because I would already be in the money, right? Yeah, Dogecoin did a little bit early. I wonder what the new. Oh, this was Jerome Powell news. That's why. Oh, here we go. I don't know if I'm allowed to play this music here, so we're gonna watch, and when I can play the video, I will. Okay, I hear clapping. There we go. We got music. Oh, there's Elon. Yeah.
All right, welcome to the Neuralink Show and Tell. So we've got an amazing amount of new developments to share with you that I think are incredibly the future. Like
sorry, my guys. My mouse is like stuck
summary,
on the. There you go. Okay.
And then we're going to have a number of members of the Neuralink team come in and give a deep technical overview of the various areas. So so let me move forward with the overall summary. Now, some of the things I'm going to say are things if you've been following Neuralink, you've already heard before, but for a lot of people out there, they've no idea what Neuralink does, and so I will be a little bit repetitive of things you may already know, but that others do not. So, the overarching goal of Neuralink is to create ultimately a whole brain interface. So a generalized input-output device that, in the long term, literally could interface with every aspect of your brain, and in the short term, can interface with any given section of your brain and solve a tremendous number of things that cause debilitating issues for people. So, you know, so our long term is I'll talk a little bit about our long term goal. It's going to sound a little esoteric, but it's it was actually the sort of my prime motivation, which was, you know, kind of what do we do about AI? Like, what do we do about artificial general intelligence? If we have digital superintelligence that's, you know, just much smarter than any human, how do we mitigate that risk at a species level? How do we mitigate that risk? And then even in a benign scenario where the AI is very, very benevolent, then how do we even go along for the ride? How do we participate? And the conclusion, the thing that the biggest limitation in going along for the ride and in aligning AI, I think, is the bandwidth, the how quickly you can interact with the computer. So we are all already cyborgs in a way, in that your phone and your computer are extensions of yourself. And I'm sure you found, like, if you leave your phone behind, you end up tapping your pockets, and it's like having missing limb syndrome. Like, where, you know, the phone is leaving your phone behind is kind of like a missing limb at this point. You're so used to interfacing with it. You're so used to being a de facto cyborg. So what's the limitation on a phone or a laptop? The limitation is the rate at which you can receive and send information, especially the speed with which you can send information. So if you're interacting with a phone, it's limited by the speed at which you can move your thumbs, or the speed at which you can talk into your phone. This is an extremely low data rate. You know, maybe it's like 10, optimistically 100 bits per second, but a computer can communicate at you know, gigabits, terabits per second. So this is the fundamental limitation that I think we need to address to mitigate the long-term risk of artificial intelligence, and also just go along for the ride. And yeah. So, but like I said, that's an esoteric explanation that I think will appeal to a niche audience, some of whom may be here. And that's a very difficult problem. So even if we do not succeed with that problem, I think we are confident at this point that we will succeed at many. It's solving many brain injury issues, spine injury issues along the way. So, yeah. So, anyways, so actually we have Justin Roiland in the audience. Says, hi, Justin. So it's a little Rick and Morty reference here. This great Rick and Morty episode about intelligence enhancement of your dog, and what's the worst that can happen? So anyway, Rick and Morty, I recommend it. So you want to be able to read the signals from the brain. You want to be able to write the signals. You want to be able to ultimately do that for the entire brain, and then also extend that to communicating to the rest of your nervous system if you have a sort of a severed spinal cord or neck. So now this video is now 18 months old. So this is Pager, who is playing monkey mind pong. So this is Pager has a Neuralink implant in this video, and the thing that's interesting is that you can't even see the neural implant. So we've miniaturized the neural implant to the point where it matches the thickness of the skull that is removed. So it's essentially it's sort of like having an Apple Watch or a Fitbit, replacing a piece of skull with like a smartwatch, for lack of a better analogy. So you can see, he looks he's normal. And I think that's pretty important. If you have a Neuralink device, like I could have a Neuralink device implanted right now, and you wouldn't, you wouldn't even know. I mean, hypothetically, maybe one of these demos, in fact, one of these demos I will. Yeah. So anyway, so here's first of all, it's kind of wild. Hey, monkeys can play Pong. They can actually play Pong if you give them a joystick. So Pedro first learned to play Pong with a joystick. So I'm like, that was novel. It's like I didn't know monkeys could play Pong, but they can. And then so we first trained Pedro to play Pong with a joystick. Then we took the joystick away and have the Neuralink, and now he's playing telepath. It's a telepathic video games, essentially. So what we've been doing since then is we've been on the very difficult journey from prototype to product. And I've often said that prototypes are easy, production is hard. It's really, I'd say, 100 to 1,000 times harder to go from a prototype to a device that is safe, reliable, works under a wide range of circumstances, is affordable, and done at scale. It's insanely difficult. I mean, there's an old saying that that it's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration, but I think it might be 99.9% perspiration. The best example I could give of an idea being easy, but the execution being hard, is going to the moon. It's the idea of going to the moon, easy. Going to the moon, very hard. So, we've been working hard to be ready for our first human, and obviously we want to be extremely careful and certain that it will work well before putting a device in a human. But we've submitted, I think, most of our paperwork to the FDA, and we think probably in about 6 months we should be able to have our first Neuralink in a human. So
That'd be pretty exciting. Oh, that's what it looks like. Okay.
But as I said, we do everything we possibly can to test the devices before, not even going into a human, before even going into an animal. So we do benchtop testing, we do accelerated life testing. We have a fake brain simulator that has the texture, and it's like emulating a brain, but it's sort of rubber. And so before we would even think of putting a device in an animal, we do everything we possibly can with rigorous benchtop testing. So we're not cavalier in putting devices into animals. We're extremely careful, and we always want the device, whenever we do the implant, if it's in a sheep or a pig or monkey, to be confirmatory, not exploratory, so that we've done everything we possibly can with benchtop testing, and only then would we consider putting a device in an animal. We'll actually show you a demo later today in a few hours, really, of implanting in a brain proxy. And if anyone in the audience wants to volunteer, we have the robot right there. So let's see, and since the page of demo, we've expanded to work with a troop of 6 monkeys. We've actually upgraded Pager. They do varied tasks. And we do everything possible to ensure that things are stable and replicable, and that that the device lasts for a long time without degradation. So, and what you're seeing there is, it looks like the matrix, but that's actually that's a real output of neural signals. So that's not a simulation or just a screensaver or something. Those are actual neurons firing. That is what one of the readouts looks like. And here you can see Sake, it's one of our other monkeys, typing on a keyboard. Now, this is telepathic typing. So to be clear, he's not actually using a keyboard. He's moving the cursor with his mind to the highlighted key. Now technically, can't actually spell, and so I don't want to oversell this thing, because that's the next version. But what's really cool here is Sake the monkey is moving the mouse cursor using just his mind, moving the cursor around to the highlighted key, and then spelling out what we want to spell. But and then so this is something that could be used for somebody who's say quadriplegic or tetraplegic human, even before we make the spinal cord stuff work, is being able to control a mouse cursor, control a phone, and we're confident that someone who has basically no other interface to the outside world would be able to control their phone better than someone who has working hands. So. Yeah.
I kind of want to test it out, but I don't want to be the first person to test it out.
And I mentioned upgradability. Upgradability is very important because our first production device will be much like an iPhone 1, and I'm pretty sure you would not want an iPhone 1 stuck in your head if the iPhone 14 is available. So it's going to be being able to demonstrate full reversibility and upgradability, so you can remove a device and replace it with the latest version, or if it stopped working for any reason, replace it. That's a fundamental requirement for the device at Neuralink. And I should say both Sake and Paige were upgraded to our latest and greatest implants. So that's been really over a year and a half now that Pager's had for the first implant and then the upgraded implant. So this is a very good sign that it lasts for a long time with no observed ill effects. I think it's also important to show that Sake actually likes doing the demo and is not like strapped to the chair or anything. So yeah, so the monkeys actually enjoy doing the demos because they get the banana smoothie, and it's kind of a fun game. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is like we care a great deal about animal welfare, and I'm pretty sure like our monkeys are pretty happy, you know. So as you can see, a quick decision maker on the fruit front.
Imagine combining Neuralink and the metaverse. That's what I'd be really happy about.
So for our the first two applications we're going to aim for in humans are restoring vision, and I think this is like notable in that even if someone has never had vision ever, like they were born blind, we believe we can still restore vision.
Oh damn!
Because the visual part of the cortex is still there, yeah, even if they've never seen before, we're confident that they could see. And then the other application being in the motor cortex, where we would initially enable someone who has ability, almost no ability to operate their muscles, sort of like a sort of Stephen Hawking type situation, and enable them to operate their phone faster than someone who has working hands. But then obviously even better than that would be to bridge the connection. Take the signals from the motor cortex, and let's say somebody's got a broken neck, then bridging those signals to Neuralink devices located in the spinal cord. So
they're going to have some cool exoskeletons coming out. Advanced
we're
warfare.
confident there are no physical limitations to enabling full body functionality. I mean, as miraculous as it may sound, we're confident that it is possible to restore full body functionality to someone who has a severed spinal cord.
This is going to be so expensive.
So yeah. All right. And then I want to emphasize again that the primary purpose of this update is recruiting. A lot of times people think that they couldn't really work at Neuralink because they don't know anything about biology or how brains work. And the thing that we really want to emphasize here is that you don't need to, because when you break down the skills that are needed to make Neuralink work, it's actually many of the same skills
I'm going
that
to the website
are required to make a smartwatch or modern phone work. So it's sort of, software, batteries, radios, inductive charging, and
California,
as well as
Texas.
things that are specific to us, like animal care and clinical and regulatory matters. Obviously, machine learning, that phrase is used a lot. But we obviously need to interpret the signals from the brain, which is a biological neural net, and the best thing to interpret a biological neural net is a digital neural net. So this is, if there's one message I want to convey, it is that if you have expertise in creating advanced devices like watches and phones, computers, then your capabilities would be of great use in solving these important problems. That's more than anything the message I want to convey. Let's see. Yeah. So with that, I guess.
I just want to see if I can find out how much money they make. Oh my God, that's a list. It doesn't say how much you'd make. I bet it's a lot.
Was on the founding team of Neuralink and has made immense contributions to the company, as have many of the others who will present. But I want just to thank DJ for his immense contribution to Neuralink. And all right. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Elon. When I moved from South Korea at age 13 and needed to learn a new language to communicate, I wondered whether there are better and more effective means of communicating my thoughts to the outside world. And watching Neo learn Kung Fu in The Matrix, I remember thinking, wow, I want to work on that, work on making that possible. And today, I believe that this is a tractable engineering challenge. Since everything about your intentions, your thoughts, and your experiences are all in your brain, encoded as firing statistics of action potentials, if you're able to put electrodes in the right places with the right sensing and stimulation capabilities, this and many other applications that Elon talked about are possible, and we can help a lot of people. I'm incredibly excited to be working on this ambitious yet important mission to make that future a reality here at Neuralink. And I'm also incredibly honored to be working with some of the brilliant colleagues, scientists and engineers across many engineering disciplines, to work on this intersection of biology and technology. You'll hear from several of them today to learn about the breadth of technical challenges we face and our progress in the last year. And I think you'll find that for most of these challenges, as Elon mentioned, you don't need a prior understanding of how the brain works, and that a lot of what we do is applying engineering first principles to biology. So how do you create a high bandwidth generalized interface to the brain? From day one, we focused on a set of foundational technologies that are safe, scalable, and capable of accessing all areas of the brain. These three axes, safety, scalability, and access to brain regions, really form the basis for how we engineer products here at Neuralink. Safety, because we want to make our devices as well as the installation as safe as possible so that we can drive the adoption of this technology. And scalability, because as we make our devices safer and more useful, more people will want it. And with scale, we also want to make it more affordable. And access to brain regions so that we can expand the functionalities of our technologies. So our first steps along these dimensions for our device is what we call the N1 implant. It's a size of about a quarter, and it has over 1,000 channels that are capable of recording and stimulating. It's microfabricated on a flexible thin film arrays that we call threads. It's fully implantable and wireless, so no wires, and after the surgery, the implant is under the skin and it is invisible. It also has a battery that you can charge wirelessly, and you can use it at home.
Charging it wirelessly. Oh God, I didn't even think about that.
So similarly, for implanting our device safely into the brain, we built a surgical robot that we call the R1 robot. It's capable of maneuvering these tiny threads that are only on the order of a few red blood cells wide, and inserting them reliably into a moving brain while avoiding vasculature. It's quite good at doing this reliably. And in fact, because we've never shown an end-to-end insertion of a robot in action, we're going to do a live demo of the robot doing surgery in our brain proxy. So who wants to see some insertions?
I'm glad they did a brain proxy. They didn't bring out like a real human or a chimpanzee.
So here it is.
Something like
That's our R1 robot with our patient alpha, who's lying comfortably on the patient bed.
Please let this work.
This is what we call the targeting view. So what you're seeing is this is a picture of our brain proxy. And the pink represents the cortical surface that we want to insert our electrodes into, and the black represents the vasculatures that we want to avoid. And what you're seeing is these hash marked with numbers that represents where we intend to put each of our threads. So should we see some insertions? So this is another view real quick. On the left is the view of the insertion area, and on the right, what the robot's going to do is it's going to peel the array, the threads, one by one from its silicon backing and insert it into the targets that we predetermined in the targeting view. So
This is not what I thought I was going to see tonight, but I'm all for it.
there you go. That's the first insertion. So we're going to see a couple more insertions. The whole process of inserting about 64 threads in our first product is going to be around 15 minutes for this robot. So Yeah, there's a second one that went in, and we're going to do a third one. There you go. And then that's going to go in the background, and we'll come back to it in the later part of the presentation.
Damn, I don't know if I want my brain like whoop, whoop, like that, but I don't know. If they pay
as
me
Elon
enough.
mentioned, we've been working very hard to go from prototype to building product. As part of this, one of the things that we did is to move our device manufacturing to a dedicated facility in Austin for scale-up manufacturing. And what's important to highlight, and is evident in this clip, is that it's very typical for us to have our engineers who design also work on the physical manufacturing line to build and debug. And this has been extremely critical in reducing our iteration cycle time. And we've also scaled up our surgery. So we now have a dedicated, our own OR, in fact, a double OR in Austin. And this is just a stepping stone before we eventually build our own Neuralink clinic. So with this product, N1 and R1, our initial goal is to help people with paralysis from complete spinal cord injury regain their digital freedom by enabling them to use their devices as good as, if not better, than they could before the injury. And as Elon mentioned, over the last year, this has been the central focus of the company. And we've been working very closely with the FDA to get approval and to launch our first in-human clinical trial in the US, hopefully in the next 6 months.
Holy moly, that'd be fast.
So hopefully this gives you a good overview of our product. For the next hour, we're going to go through a deep technical dives on these topics to tell you about our technical challenges, share some of our progress, and preview what's coming next. So with that, over to Nir from my team, who's going to talk to you about neural decoding.
Thank you, DJ. And hey, everyone. My name is Nir Evan-Chen, and I'm the head of Brain Interfaces Applications. Our goal is to enable someone with paralysis control a computer, as well as me, or even better. We'd like to provide fast and accurate control with all the functionality of computers that works anytime, anywhere. So I'm very excited to show you how we're using the N1 device with our software and algorithms to achieve this. Last year, we shared with you a video of Pager the monkey controlling a computer cursor with his brain. So how do we do that? Just a brief reminder. First, we record his neural activity from the motor cortex using the N1 device. We can record from over thousands of channels while he's playing with the joystick. Then we can train a neural net that predicts the cursor velocity from the patterns of his neural activity. With this decoder, he can then control a cursor just by thinking about it, without even moving the joystick. He can play with this decoder a variety of games, also a grid task, where he's moving the white dot towards the yellow target. Every time he gets one, he receives a drop of his favorite smoothie. And he chooses to play this game every day. Here you can see his performance.
Sorry about the
early
Wi-Fi again,
2021.
guys.
Around the
That's
time
the
we released
snow
previous
outside.
demo.
It's killing the
It's
signal.
quite accurate, but it's a bit slower than what we would like. And cursor control is the foundation for interacting with most computer applications. So since then, we've been working to improve cursor speed and accuracy. As you can see, it's much, much faster, almost twice as fast. However, it's still a bit slower than what I can do. So we are working on creative ways to improve that. Now, speed is not enough. You want the full set of functionalities. And for decades, most software was built for mouse and keyboard control. And it doesn't make sense to reinvent this entire ecosystem for brain control, at least for now. So we are working and we are designing mouse and keyboard interfaces for the brain. The way we do that is by training Pager and his friends on a variety of computer tasks, and then designing algorithms to predict their behavior. Here you can see a few examples of tasks in different phases of monkey training. For example, left and right click, click and drag, cursor typing, swipe typing, handwriting, and even hand gestures.
I can't wait till they start
Now,
making humans
interacting
do
with
this type of
computer
stuff.
is bidirectional, and feedback is very important. I like when I click on a button and I can physically feel the button being pressed. When a potential N1 user will attempt to click, they won't be able to feel it. An example of how we are addressing that is by providing a real-time visual feedback that represents the strength of the neural click by changing the color of the cursor. Just by typing on a physical keyboard is much faster and easier than typing on an iPad keyboard. This will make the brain control much faster and easier to use. Typing, one of the most important functionalities. So you already seen this message, and I want to show you the behind the scene of how this message was created. And here you can see again Saki using the virtual keyboard, typing this message. This virtual keyboard is similar to the one I use on my phone. And with the speed and accuracy that we achieved so far, typing on a virtual keyboard is already fast and easy. However, I never use a virtual keyboard when I type on my computer, because it covers my screen, and it's also much slower than what I can do with my 10 fingers. We can do better. For example, a group from Stanford asked a person to imagine handwriting letters. Then they decoded the letters from his brain activity. Using this approach, they were able to speed up the typing rates. We started this project with our monkeys, but of course they don't know how to write. So to mimic writing, we trained Ranger, one of our favorite monkeys, to trace digits on an iPad. Here you can see him tracing the digit 5 and the digit 2. Then we recorded his neural activity with the N1 device. But now, instead of decoding the cursor velocity, we decode in real time the digit that he's tracing on the screen. We had two main takeaways from this project. One, that monkeys are awesome and can learn very, very complex tasks. The second one, that although it can increase the typing rate, it requires hundreds of examples and samples of each of the digits and the characters we wanted to classify. This would not scale. The way we are solving that is by indirection. Instead of decoding directly the digits, we first decode the hand trajectory of on the screen. And then, when we decoded the hand trajectory, we can use any off-the-shelf handwriting classifier to predict the digit and the characters. For example, classifiers that are trained on an MNIST dataset. Why it's so important? It's important because now we can potentially decode any character in any language with only one neural decoder for hand trajectory. It means that you can write in English, Hebrew, Mandarin, or even monkey language, and we can understand you wanted a banana. So there are many challenges ahead of us to improve functionality and speed. And I want to hand it off to Bliss to talk about the third part, how we are making our brain interfaces work anytime, anywhere.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bliss, and I'm a software engineer here at Neuralink. When I use my computer, my mouse and keyboard work how I intend them to, at least like 99.9999% of the time. My goal is to enable a user with paralysis to control their computer as reliably as I can. Here's what we want that experience to feel like. In this video, you can see Saki walking over to his MacBook and choosing to work on his typing task. The entire decoding system works out of the box, and it feels totally plug and play. The first step to achieving this kind of high reliability is to test extensively offline. A typical flow for using the N1 link is to connect over Bluetooth, stream out neural activity from the brain, and then use that neural activity to train decoders and do real-time inference. We've built a simulation for exactly this sequence, but instead of using a monkey with an implant, we use a simulated brain that injects synthetic neural activity into an implant sitting in a server rack. From the point of view of that implant, it's in a real brain. This simulation runs on every code commit to validate that from the hardware all the way up through to the neural decoders, our entire stack can achieve state-of-the-art performance. However, while this kind of simulation is great for integration testing of software and hardware, it's not yet detailed enough to guarantee high reliability in the real world. In the real world, the underlying signals we're trying to decode actually change day to day. In this plot, you can see the average firing rate detected on a representative channel of Saki's implant. Each bar represents one day, and you can see that each day has a different average firing rate than the previous. This presents us with a very interesting problem for how to make our decoders robust day to day. It can actually happen that if you train a neural decoder on one day of data and then try to use it on the next, the average firing rates can actually shift enough to cause a bias in the output of the model. Here on the right, you can see that this bias is making it hard for the cursor to move to the upper right corner. You see it struggling here to make it up to the upper right, and then it moves much more effortlessly down to the bottom left. We're trying many approaches to mitigate this problem. Some examples include building models on large data sets of many days of data to try to find patterns of neural activity that are stable across days. Another approach we're trying is to continuously sample statistics of neural activity on the implant and use the latest estimates to pre-process the data before feeding it into the model. This is really an active area of research for the team, and it's a critical problem to solve if we want to enable someone with paralysis to control their computer as well as I can.
Imagine waking up and doing a daily
Another
calibration.
big problem we have is to minimize the time it takes for a spike in the brain to impact the movement of the cursor on the screen. If you have lag or jitter in this control loop, the cursor becomes hard to control, leading to the kinds of overshoots that you can see here on the right. One
That's
big
good in my
improvement
head.
we've made towards in this direction is called phase lock. Phase lock aligns the edge of each packet that we send off the implant to the exact moment that the Bluetooth radio is going to wake up. This minimizes the time it takes for a spike in the brain to be incorporated into the prediction of our neural network. Here you can see the latency distribution after phase lock. Not only has the mean been greatly reduced, but the variance has been reduced as well. This makes it easier for the user to predict the behavior of their cursor. Over the last year, we've made tremendous improvements to the stability and reliability of our system. And we've been able to demonstrate consistent high performance across many sessions and many months. However, there's still a long road ahead of us before the system will truly feel plug and play. So if solving the hard problems required to ship this technology is exciting to you, you should consider applying to join the team. Now, I'm going to hand it over to Avinash to talk about how our custom low-power Asic detects spikes in the brain.
One of the few companies out there right now trying to hire in a bear market. That's the startup vibe.
Hi, I'm Avinash, one of the engineers on the Asic team. We designed the custom neural sensors, which include both analog and digital circuitry, to record and stimulate across 1,024 independent channels. We faced challenges across all three major metrics: performance, power, and area. Not only do we have to fit all 1024 channels into a single quarter-sized implant, but we also have to measure spiking activity less than 20 microvolts in amplitude. And today, I'd like to focus on the last challenge I mentioned, power. Power consumption is important to us because we want to give future users a full day of use of their implant without any interruption for charging. Back in 2018, we were sending every sample from every channel off the device for processing, which burned a ton of power. In 2020, we brought spike detection onto the chip. As you may know, neurons transmit information by firing. So simply monitoring for these spikes and only sending these spike events off the implant acts as a very efficient form of compression. And over the past 2 years, we've continued to make optimizations within the Asic, dropping the total system power consumption down to just 32 milliwatts and doubling battery life. Let's take a look at our on-chip spike detection algorithm, which makes our battery-powered implants possible. We first start by applying a 500 Hz to 5 kHz bandpass filter to remove noise that's out of band. Next, we use an estimate of the noise floor to generate an adaptive threshold per channel. And finally, our spike detector module identifies 3 key points of a spike. Identifying 3 points allows us to detect not just the presence of a spike, but the shape of a spike as well. This can be extremely important for distinguishing between multiple neurons adjacent to a single channel. Today, I'd like to focus on one of the many optimizations that we've made in our latest chip. This one specifically cutting system power by 15%. Note that neurons spike relatively infrequently, which means that our spike detector spends a lot of time searching for the first point of a spike and very little time searching for the other 2 points of a spike that only occur after the threshold is crossed. We can use this characteristic of the input waveform to reduce memory accesses within the chip by 30%. Let's take a look at how that works. Our spike detector is implemented as a single functional unit that's shared across all channels with an SRAM to buffer the state of each channel. As a sample comes in, its channel state is read from SRAM, an incremental spike detection step is run, and then the updated state is written back to SRAM. Since this is happening 20 million times per second across the implant, each of these accesses add up quite quickly. In our latest chip, we split the state into 2 parts, a hot state and a cold state. The hot state is accessed on every cycle, while the cold state is only accessed once the threshold is crossed, reducing the average access width and saving power. We're also working on a next generation stimulation-focused chip with 4,096 channels still within the footprint of our current chips. In addition to increasing the channel count, we're also increasing the drive voltage so we can get better activation per channel. And to support this higher channel count, as well as a broad range of future applications that you'll soon hear about, we're adding an ARM core onto the chip. And finally, since these chips are the same size as our current chips, we can still put 4 of them together into a single implant for a total of 16,000 channels still within the size of the forger.
Chalapola.
As you can see, we've been working very hard to improve the power consumption within the implant. But we've also been working very hard to improve the charging experience of the implant, which Matt will talk about. But first, the robot has just completed inserting all 64 threads. So let's take a look.
That was a pretty short surgery. Oh, whoa.
This is a view of the insertion site, similar to the one that DJ showed you earlier. But instead of the targeting reticles, if you look closely, you can see that all 64 threads, each carrying 16 electrodes, have been inserted into the brain proxy while avoiding vasculature, and all just within the past 20 minutes.
That's insane. Like scary insane.
Let's hand
That's
it
so
over
much
to
I
Matt
love
now
it.
to continue the technical deep dive.
I love that we have a lot of smart people like this, like just doing good
Hi,
stuff
I'm Matt.
while
Head
I'm
of
doing
Brain
trading and making
Interfaces
my life
Electrical
nice and
Engineering.
easy.
Our fully implantable N1 device depends on a battery for continuous operation. When that battery is running low, charging is accomplished through wireless power transfer.
Ooh, I want to see. I
However,
want to hear about this.
unlike many consumer electronic devices, which can simply offer a physical connector, charging a fully implantable device poses several unique challenges. First, the system must operate over a wide charging volume without relying on magnets for perfect alignment. The system must be robust to disturbance and complete quickly so as not to be overly burdensome. However, most important is safety. In contact with brain tissue, the outer surface of the implant must not rise more than 2 degrees C.
Imagine having a charging hat. You just wear it for like 20
In pursuit
minutes
of
and
these
all of a
goals,
sudden you're good to
our
go for the
charging
rest of the
system
day.
has gone through
I'm going to
several
patent that, or
engineering
Elon should
iterations.
patent that immediately.
The first,
Charging hat.
If you
I'm
watched
calling
our
it now,
big demo
charging hat.
in August of 2020, Gertrude was implanted with a version of the N1 charged with our first generation charger. This device was implemented in a small puck package and later separated into a remote coil and battery base. This charger was challenging to use. However, we learned a lot through its implementation. Our current production charger, which charges our current generation of implants, is implemented in an aluminum battery base, which also includes the drive circuitry. A remote coil, 4 times the size of our original device, also disconnectable. This remote coil has increased switching frequency, driving improved coil coupling.
Hey,
This
secret.
charger is in use today.
I would hope it could
including
help my mom
several
with a stroke or
applications
something like
within
that,
our
or if I ever had a
engineering
stroke one
and
day.
animal test facilities.
But heck, even for speech,
I'd like
if
to
that
show
works
you
too,
one of
but I
these
haven't heard anything on
applications
that.
here with a device we call our simple charger. And the coil has been embedded into the habitat. With the addition of one new outer control loop plus a banana smoothie pump, the troop has been trained to charge themselves. So let's see how Pager charges his implant.
Okay.
On the right, we're streaming real-time diagnostics from Pager's N1.
Dude, the
When he
tech here
climbs
is
up
insane.
and sits below the coil, you can see the charger automatically detect his presence and transition from searching to charging. We see the regulated power output on a scale of 0 to 1 and the current driven into his battery.
I like how they're looking at the temperature as well. I'd be freaking out if it was getting hot, like sometimes an iPhone gets really hot while you're charging
I
it.
mentioned earlier that we improved the coil coupling. However, the high quality factor coils exhibit good charging performance over relatively larger distances, but as they're brought closer to the implant, what you see is a peak splitting effect, where the best, highest efficiency power transfer is pushed up into higher frequencies outside of the ISM band required for compliance with regulated radiated emissions. In our next generation charger, we address this problem by the introduction of dynamic tuning, shown on the right. This allows us to, in real time, adjust the resonant frequency of the transmit and receive coils so that we can change their properties just ahead of degraded performance.
They're doing a lot of crazy cool stuff, but it's hard to
The electrical
explain to
engineering
regular
team
people like
is
us. That's
currently
all I'm getting
engaged
from
in
these
developing a
people.
third-generation
They're trying
charger.
so hard to dumb it down, and they're
Notable
doing a good job.
improvements include
Good job.
bidirectional near-field communication. This has allowed us to reduce the control latency and improve the thermal regulation. Improved thermal regulation results in faster charge times. And
Makes
now,
sense.
Julian will tell us about how we test the N1.
Thank you very much, Matt. My name is Julian, and I lead the embedded software group on the Brain Interfaces team. So when we started building implants, we had a small manufacturing line, and to collect data from an implant, you would manually walk over with your laptop, you would connect, and collect the data of interest.
Hey, Hotep.
But our goal is to make an ultra-safe
and hey, Secret Fish as well.
ultra-reliable implant. And so to do this, we scaled up the manufacturing line, our testing throughput, and data collection capabilities. So firstly, we added a large suite of acceptance tests to the manufacturing line. These test the functionality of each component and the final assembly. Implants coming off the line are then subjected to benchtop testing, accelerated lifetime, and animal models. We then collect data from these implants round the clock. This data is processed by a series of cloud workers and displayed in an aggregate manner. And then finally, all of this information feeds back into our design process and empowers our engineers to answer any question about any implant at any time. I'm now going to walk you through different parts of this infrastructure, starting off with firmware testing. So the implant contains a small microprocessor running firmware to manage a whole bunch of its operations. And before we release a firmware update, we want to rigorously test it with both unit and hardware-in-the-loop tests, also known as hill tests. So to do a hill test, what you do is you instrument the battery, you instrument the power rails, the microprocessor, and then we connect to each device with a Bluetooth client. And then we walk the devices through various scenarios to test things like power consumption, real-time performance, security systems, fault recovery mechanisms, a lot of different things. In our original implementation of these systems, we used off-the-shelf components to start automating tests quickly. However, these systems were constructed in a relatively artisan fashion and were very difficult to maintain. And this meant that testing quickly became the bottleneck for development. So to alleviate this, the hardware and software teams developed a new system which integrates all the required components onto a single baseboard. We can then put the charger and implant hardware on individual modules that plug into this baseboard, including one board with opposing coils so that we can test charging performance. This architecture allows us to rapidly iterate different hardware prototypes because we can simply drop them into this system and reuse all the testing infrastructure. Additionally, we can host the current and next generation of our neural ASICs onto FPGAs and plug those into this board as well. And that allows us to test a whole extra layer altogether. So that's how we generated this rather inceptive image here on the right. What you're looking at is spiking activity emitted from some of our simulated neural sensors, streamed through the entire system over Bluetooth and then displayed on a phone. This allows us to test everything in one system, from chip to cloud. This system is 1/5 the cost, 1/5 the volume, and is very easy to manufacture. This allows every developer to have a personal unit on their desk, and it also allows us to shard the entire test suite over a large number of these units mounted into a rack. All of this has greatly accelerated our rate of development.
You must have to pass some
Let's look
crazy
next
background
at
checks to
how
get
we
into this
monitor the
company.
implant's
This
electronics,
tech
the
seems so
battery, and the
crazy.
enclosure. So the implant will periodically capture all of its vital signs and commit those to flash. And then upon next connection with one of our recording stations, it will stream that data off. So for instance, if we look at humidity, we can get an understanding of the integrity of the implant's enclosure. And by looking at battery voltage and power measurements, we can gauge battery health. All of this is done automatically without any intervention, giving us 24/7 visibility into the quality of every single device. Additionally, we can use this infrastructure to request high fidelity information on demand so that we can investigate different anomalous situations. So for instance, in this particular scenario, we were trying to track down the source of some spurious spikes that we were observing on different channels, and so we requested raw wave samples directly from those channels. Capturing good quality neural signals requires intact, low impedance electrodes. And so this is also something we monitor very closely with dedicated circuitry on the neural sensor. So how do we do this? We do this by first using an onboard DAC to play a test tone on a single channel. And then we record, using our ADCs simultaneously, we record the response signal on both that channel and physically adjacent channels. Not only can we measure the impedance of every channel with this, but we can also map different physical phenomena to different characteristic signatures. So for instance, an open channel will appear as a very large response on the channel, and shorter channels will appear as a large response on neighboring channels. By looking at the purity of the signal coming back, we can also validate that the analog front end of the neural sensor itself is operational. In our original implementation of doing these impedance scans, it took 4 hours to get through all 1,000 channels. But by parallelizing the tests, downsampling, filtering, and then reducing the amount of information we have to stream off the device by moving a lot of the calculation to the firmware side, we're now able to scan all 1,000 channels in just 20 seconds. This means that we can run impedance on every implant every day. And then our internal dashboards can play back a history of this impedance so that we can get a really good quantitative insight into that interface between biology and electronics. Now that you have an idea about how we test and monitor our implants, I'm going to hand it off to Josh, who's going to tell you about how we get feedback even faster by accelerating our implants to failure.
This is some complicated stuff, guys. But I think they can do it. I'd like to see how the first couple
Hello.
human trials
My
go.
name is Joshua Hess, and I'm an engineer on the Brain Interfaces team. We are responsible for the implant system design, as well as many of the manufacturing and testing tools. Julian just talked to you a little bit about some of the ways in which we test our implant electronics hardware and software. But what about the entire system as it relates to longevity in tissue? One of the ways we've addressed this is with the development of our in-house accelerated lifetime testing system. The system allows us to expedite and capture long-duration implant failure modes at scale to rapidly increase our pace of iteration. Even better, the system also significantly reduces the amount of tests which require animal models, both for implant prototypes and, of course, longevity testing. So how does the system work? Well, at a very basic level, it comes down to 3 things. First, we want to mimic the internal chemistry of tissue. Next, we want to accelerate these chemical interactions as well as diffusion with our implant materials. And finally, we want to aggressively cycle the internal electronics of our implant. With these things, primarily the first 2, we have achieved a conservative 4x acceleration factor by the Arrhenius relationship. In other words, every day our implants spend in our accelerated system is equivalent to at least 4 days spent in vivo. Historically, one of our greatest challenges has been the battle against moisture ingress into our implants. So we continuously monitor the internal humidity to watch for abnormal rise. Here, in white, you can see some internal humidity data from implants in some of our animals for the duration of over 1 year. As you can see,
Ooh.
our internal humidity sensing is so sensitive, it can even detect the very small and slow humidity rise just from diffusion through our implant materials.
Wonder if it's worse in the south.
Now, in blue, you can see that same internal humidity data, but from devices in our accelerated system. Now, if we adjust this data for our acceleration factor, you can begin to see not only the agreement in this data, but also just how far into the future this data extends. Now, in red, you can see a device which has failed in our accelerated system. This device showed an abnormal increase in humidity over the duration of many months before implant electronic failures occurred. So how did we build this system? Well, we started building the first system prototype just after the COVID shutdown had begun in early 2020. So we had to get a little creative. As you can see, our first system prototype was a little scrappy and operated out of one of our apartments, as indicated by the carpeting. Although scrappy, the system allowed us the fastest path to start testing our devices, tuning our working fluid chemistry, and checking our constraints. We also immediately started root causing observed failures in early implant prototypes, fed that information into the next prototype designs, and literally rinsed and repeated. Over the duration of just a few months, the system was built out totally custom and highly iterated with 2 system versions and countless minor iterations, leading us to our currently operated 3rd generation system, which achieves high density testing with automatic in-vessel charging as well as automatic data collection. The system also features an implant sled assembly, which accepts brain proxy material such that the implant can be installed and inserted by the surgical robot, just like you saw a few minutes ago. We also integrated the system into a high-density rack mount form factor, along with a centralized fluid management system, both for chemical uniformity across vessels and also reduced operational maintenance. The system has been in operation for the last 1.5 years and has had its fair share of challenges. Since the system itself is undergoing the same accelerated abuse as the implants within it, it has been extremely challenging to design, build, and maintain a system of this scale while keeping it robust, even against itself. So what comes next? Well, we have started work on our 4th generation system and have totally redesigned it from the ground up to be a hot swappable, single implant per vessel design, partly inspired by high density compute servers. With this new system, we will achieve a whole new level of density, robustness, and scale. We also intend to have many of these systems operational in the pursuit of capturing even the lowest frequency edge case failure modes. With this, we will have thousands of implants testing in pursuit of these goals. We've already started work building out this system, but there is still a lot left to do. There are also many exciting challenges ahead of us, such as introducing mechanical stressing, brain proxy micromotion, and even replicating tissue growth around the threads for more complete and representative accelerated testing. So now that you've heard some of the ways in which we rigorously test our implant designs before production for surgery, Christine is now going to take you through a detailed look at our surgical process.
Thanks, Josh. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine, lead of the surgery engineering team. To get an N1 device, it's essentially these steps: targeting and the incision, drill the craniectomy,
It's like Grey's
remove
Anatomy.
the tough outer meningeal layer called the dura, then insert the thin, flexible threads of electrodes, place the implant into the hole we created, and then that's it. You've got an implant under the skin. Look, Ma, no wires. Just kidding. I mean, seriously, no wires, but I don't actually have one.
That
The
I didn't
surgical
know that
robot
the
does
skull
thread
piece is still
insertion part of
gone.
the surgery. This is because it would be very difficult to do manually. Imagine taking a hair from your head and trying to stick it into Jello covered by Saran wrap, and
Get
doing
some
this at a
professional
precise
tattoo
step
artist
and
out there.
position, and doing this 64 times within a reasonable amount of time. And a neurosurgeon would probably not like it very much if we asked them to do this for the surgery. So we have the robot that you saw doing its tiny dance. I sort of wanted to call it Tiny Dancer, but it's called R1, which is also great. The rest of the surgery is done by the neurosurgeon. In order for us to make a accessible and affordable procedure, we need to revisit this. I'll tell you why. When I was in school, my dad lost the ability to walk and to use his arms and even to speak. He was diagnosed with ALS. We would look on the internet and you could see maybe one person here or there who had some cool custom robotic assistive device, but it was deeply frustrating how limited were the options available to him. And there's hundreds of thousands of people with paresis, not even counting people with other conditions that our device might be able to help. Meanwhile, there's not that many neurosurgeons, maybe about 10 per million people.
Oh, damn.
And it takes about a decade or more to train a neurosurgeon, and they're already generally very busy. And as you can imagine, their time is very expensive. So in order for us to do the most good and have an affordable and accessible procedure, we need to figure out how one neurosurgeon could oversee many procedures at the same time. This might sound sort of crazy, but probably so did laser eye surgery before LASIK made it normal. LASIK's been around for about 30 years and counting. In the beginning, the laser robot did just the most fundamental core part that it had to do, and the surgeon did the rest. And over the iterations, the surgeon has to do less and less, and the laser robot does most of it. And it's a highly compelling procedure, takes just a handful of minutes, and often gives life-changing results.
I need to do this.
Since I joined in 2017, we've also done a handful of iterations to optimize the thread insertions of the robot. One of the challenges that we've had to face has to do with the optomechanical packaging.
Oh.
So as you can see here, there's about 3 primary optical paths that are really valuable for us to have reliable thread insertions. One is the visible imaging of the needle inserting the thread. And then another is the laser interferometry system called OCT, optical coherence tomography, that gives us the precise position of the brain while it's moving in real time. And then also we have to provide lighting and illumination to see what's going on in the visible light camera. And doing all this where the needle is at the bottom of the craniectomy, especially when it's close to the skull wall, can be pretty difficult to fit everything and be able to see it. So the way that the team solved this is by putting all 3 of these optical paths into one optical stack using photon magic or polarization, whatever you want to call it. And that enables us to do vessel avoidance in real time. So as I mentioned, the brain is moving.
Oh, that's sweet.
And where we place targets in the beginning may not be where you want to insert at the moment the needle is going down there. So the robot can actually detect the vessels and then determine if we're going to insert onto a vessel or not, if it's safe to insert. And then that way we can avoid inserting onto major vessels. And that brings us to the robot that we have here today. There's still a lot for us to do to get to that procedure where we reduce the role of the neurosurgeon and make it affordable and accessible. The 2 elements of the surgery that demand the most skills from the neurosurgeon are the craniectomy and the directomy. Alex and Sam are going to tell you a bit more about how we think we can get rid of the directomy step. So that leaves the craniectomy. In neurosurgery, if your craniectomy is small enough, you can use a standard tool called a perforator, which makes quick work of this job. But for a larger craniectomy, the surgeon has to rely on their skill in order to accommodate the variability patient to patient in skull thickness, skull hardness. Even within the same patient, in the same craniectomy, you can have different skull thicknesses, for example. In addition, if we can make something that has a very high precision craniectomy, we can open the design space for future ways of mounting the implant to the skull. So I'll show you a few of our prototypes. Ultrasonic cutters, like what's on the screen, and oscillating cutters have the benefit of not cutting soft tissue. You can cut the bone and not the brain. But however, as you can see here, our ultrasonic cutter prototype created quite a bit of heat to cut at the rate that we wanted. So
Holy moly.
onto the oscillating saw. Here we designed a blade to minimize cut time and also conducted sound and also heating. And as you can see, you can cut through hard things like bone, but not soft things like skin. It's simple and it works. However, if you wanted to cut an arbitrary depth or arbitrary shape, the oscillating saw just won't cut it.
Whatever joke that was, it might have went over my head here.
I was afraid no one would get it. You guys are smart.
Oh man, that means I'm
so
not smart.
There's a time-tested solution for
Ooh, okay.
drilling arbitrary shapes, which is a CNC drill. The challenge with us doing this on a person is that we need to make sure it cuts reliably every single time, doesn't cut too deep. And a few ways that we're using feedback to make sure we don't cut through the brain are force feedback and also impedance. And if I could get a volunteer, no, just kidding. Maybe next time. But yeah, so this is some insight into some of the things we're working on to make an accessible and affordable procedure. And now Alex is going to tell you a bit about our next generation developments.
That was pretty wild. That was pretty wild.
Thanks, Christine. I'm Alex. I'm a mechanical engineer here on the robotics team. Now that we've covered the technology and surgical process for our current device, we'd like to cover some of our next generation development projects. I and the next couple speakers would like to talk about one of those projects, which is enabling device upgradability. You've gotten to hear about the advancements we've made over the past year. We've improved implant robustness, battery and charging performance, Bluetooth usability. Realistically, every new device version is going to be significantly better. It'll be more functional, it'll last longer. We need to keep this new technology accessible for our early adopters. This means that we need a solution to make device upgrade or replacement just as easy as it is to initially install. As many medical device companies have found, this is a challenging problem. The body's healing response doesn't make this easy, so this isn't solved yet. But we've made significant progress towards enabling this that we'd like to cover today. Now, we'll have to start with some background as to what makes device upgrade challenging. And we'll start with the anatomy. Under the skin, you have the skull. Below that, the dura, a tough membrane that separates the bone from the brain. And between the dura and the brain, you have the pia arachnoid complex, a fluid-filled suspension for the brain. To install the device, the surgeon removes a disc of skull and dura to expose the brain surface. The device then replaces the removed material. The challenge is here at this interface. Over months, all empty volume is filled by tissue, encapsulating the device and the threads. The device would be trivially easy to remove. Because of the thread's small size, they would slip right out of the brain. It's the tissue layer that forms above the surface that makes the removal challenging. We built tools in-house to study this response and characterize it, such as histology and micro-CT. In these images, you can see that layer of tissue that has formed above the surface, encapsulating the threads and adhering to the surrounding tissue. We've explored many different avenues for designing around this healing process and finding a solution to make device upgrade seamless. Our best successes have come from making the procedure less invasive. Instead of directly exposing the brain's surface, we instead keep the dura in place, maintaining the body's natural protective barrier. This prevents encapsulation at the brain's surface. And really, this is actually a huge win for making the surgery simpler and safer, as Christine alluded to. However, this doesn't come for free. The dura is a very tough, opaque membrane. As you can see in these SEM images, it's composed of a dense network of collagen fibers. These offer an array of technical challenges for inserting our electrodes. One of those challenges is imaging through the dura. As you can see on the left, our current custom optical systems offer pretty incredible capabilities for imaging the exposed brain surface. However, as you can see on the right, once the dura is in place, you can't see the dense vasculature at the brain surface. The dura is in the way. There's simply too much attenuation. To solve this problem, we're developing a new optical system that uses medical standard fluorescent dye to image vessels underneath the tissue.
Oh, that's pretty smart.
Here, you can see that dye perfusing through the vessels, highlighting them. There's still a lot of engineering work to go to prove accuracy and repeatability of this system. But once that's done, this will allow us to target and avoid blood vessels underneath the dura. We're also exploring applying our laser imaging system to deeper tissue structures. In the bottom left, you can see a section of the tissue layers underneath the dura. this image is compiled from multiple volumes from our optical coherence tomography system. You can see the collage of those volumes above. In the future, these new systems, when combined with correlation to pre-op imaging, such as MRI, will enable precise targeting without directly exposing the brain surface. Now, imaging isn't the only challenge that comes with the tough dural anatomy. Now, I'd like to hand it over to Sam to talk about some of the challenges of inserting our electrodes through this membrane.
Oh,
Thanks,
this
Alex.
guy's a bro, you can just
Hey,
tell.
I'm Sam, and I lead the needle manufacturing and design team. So, as Alex mentioned, the same properties of the dura that make it a good protector of the brain also make it really difficult for us to insert the threads into. In humans, the dura can be over 1 millimeter in thickness, which doesn't sound like a lot, but compared to our 40-micron needles, it actually is a lot. For example, if you scaled up the needles to the size of a pencil, the dura would scale to over 4 inches in thickness. Take a look at how far you have to zoom in to even see it. By the time the features of the needle come into frame, you could see individual red blood cells in the same frame. This is just wait. This is a real-life SEM image of our latest design. On the left there, you can see the end of the thread. In the middle is the needle, and on the right is actually a piece of my hair. So yeah, it's extremely small. And besides being really small, there's a lot of other challenges associated with designing this. One challenge is that we have to use the needle and the protective cannula that it sits in to grab onto the thread and to hold it while we peel it from this protective silicon backing. And then we have to keep holding it while we bring it over to the surface and then release it from the cannula during insertions. Another challenge is that the brain is really soft beneath the tough dura. And so if the needle isn't sharp enough, it'll just keep dimpling the surface without puncturing. And if this free length gets too long, it can actually just buckle the needle like this. Another challenge is that we don't just have to get the needle through, we have to get the thread through as well. So we really have to focus on optimizing the combined profile of the needle and thread together. And these are just some of the challenges.
This is way
associated
back
with
in
designing
April,
something
too.
like this.
They must have been working
And
a
so
lot
far we
since then.
found that the key to solving this problem has been improving on our speed of
Hey,
iteration.
Doge Master.
But let's look at how we make these things in the first place. So we start with a length of 40 micron wire made out of tungsten and alloyed with a little bit of rhenium for added ductility. We designed this femtosecond laser mill in-house to cut the features of the needle and cannula. And it can do this with sub-micron precision.
Sub-micron.
We spent a lot of time this year turning this thing from a science project into an industrial system. Just a couple months ago, it took a skilled operator 22 minutes to make a needle. And even a skilled operator could only get about 58% yield. Today, that same process takes just 6 minutes, and anyone can get 91% yield with just a few minutes of training. With only one click, the mill cuts and measures the needle and cannula and uploads the measurements to our limb system so that the robots can use the exact dimensions for each needle that it uses. Now, this is all for our current design, though, and we've had a couple years to optimize the manufacturing process of it. The current design has served us well so far, but it doesn't quite protect the thread well enough to get through the tough dura. So, like I said, we had to come up with something new, and we needed to be able to iterate on designs quickly. Unsurprisingly, there's no page in machinery's handbook for this kind of thing, so we dug into the science of femtosecond laser ablation and figured out a workflow that allows us to use our laser mill much like a CNC mill. This allows us to iterate several times. This allows us to iterate in under an hour for new designs, allowing several iterations per day when we're really on a roll. As a result, the latest design, seen on the right, can actually insert through 9 layers of dura, totaling 3 millimeters on the bench top. This is far more than we could ever expect in a human with significant margin.
Dude, so much freaking trial and error went into this stuff. Trial, and error. Means it cost a lot of
The
money.
needle isn't the only part of the puzzle, though. As you can imagine, all of these designs here work with different threads. So we need a way to iterate on that as well. And we do this by having our microfabrication process here in-house. This summer, we completely rebuilt our clean room in about 9 weeks, which, among other things, greatly reduced particulate counts, which allows yield and throughput to greatly increase. This, combined with all the other great improvements the microfab team has made, allows us to iterate on new designs in just a matter of days. The last piece of the puzzle, though, is testing. We can come up with as many new designs as we want, but unless we have a way to actually test them in the right conditions, we won't know what to tweak. Or even worse, we'll spend time optimizing for the wrong things. Take this failure mode, for example. A few months ago, we got to the point where we could pretty reliably insert through the Dura. But when we took the proxies and put them in our micro CT imaging, we realized that our hold on the end of the threads was actually too strong, and we were pulling them out just a little bit underneath the surface. By the time we solved the problem, we realized that this issue was very sensitive to the properties of the surrounding material or tissue. We could make a proxy where this never happens, and we could make another proxy where this happened every single time. And this highlights why it's crucial that we spend time making our benchtop tests match tissue as accurately as possible. And I'm going to pass it off to Leslie now, who's going to talk about how we've been doing that. Thanks.
It's interesting that they're trying to keep that top layer, though. I almost wonder if they should just like take off the layer and put it down
I'm Leslie,
anywhere.
and I lead microfabrication R&D. And part of what we're interested in is understanding the biological environment our implant and threads experience once they're fully installed in the body. Learning directly from biology, though, is inherently slow. So in order to move fast, we're developing synthetic materials that mimic the biological environment. This allows us to learn as much as we can on benchtop and start taking steps away from the industry standard of animal testing. Developing accurate proxies, though, is challenging. The implant environment is made up of many anatomical layers that all have unique properties. And as time goes on and the implant site heals, new tissue forms, filling any available space. In addition to that, motion related to cardiovascular activity and head movement introduce added complexity. So to start addressing some of these challenges, we're engineering materials using feedback from biology. This may involve mechanical characterization of tissue or analysis of interactions at thread-tissue interfaces. Much
That
of
makes
this
sense, ego peak.
characterization is even done during surgery itself by using custom hardware and software that modifies our surgical robot to double up as a sensitive characterization tool. We then use the data collected and feed it back into optimizing our materials so that they behave mechanically, chemically, and as shown here, structurally, just like biology. We've come a long way from our humble first brain proxy, shown here sitting on a plate and consisting of agar and a parafilm sheet. And while simple,
I get you,
it
Rob.
allowed
Thanks.
us to perfect robot insertions through countless benchtop tests.
I should be
Today,
safer when it
our
comes to
proxy is
sticking
slightly more
needles in my
complex,
head.
where we've upgraded to a composite hydrogel-based brain proxy that better mimics the modulus of real human brain. We've also incorporated a Dura proxy and developed an injectable soft tissue proxy that so far has allowed us to perform benchtop mock explant testing. We have a super long wish list for our proxy of the future, but some of those items include a surgery proxy with integrated soft tissue, brain, bone, skin, or even a whole body, a brain proxy that simulates motion, vasculature, and electrophysiological activity, and a biological proxy to test biocompatibility and electrical stimulation. There's a ton of ongoing work getting us closer to our proxy of the future, including work on lab-grown cerebral organoids, as shown here. And all of this will get us closer to a future where we learn more and iterate faster on benchtop and reduce our reliance on animal models, or even one day replace them completely. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dan, who will be presenting a very exciting next generation application. Thank you.
Yeah, the stream's lagging a little bit. It's snowing a lot outside, and I can't really help it. But
Thank you,
before the stream, it was working
My
fine.
name's Dan.
Sorry about that, guys.
And I came to work at Neuralink after following a career in visual neuroscience research.
This guy seems like
I was
he's very
inspired
educated. He's
to join
old
this company
compared to everybody
because
else.
I saw in our device the potential to restore vision to people rendered blind by eye injury or disease. There are a number of particular characteristics of our device that make it uniquely suited to this application. Firstly, as well as being able to record from every channel, we can stimulate neural activity in the brain by injecting current through every channel. This is important because it allows us to bypass the eye and generate a visual image in the brain directly. Secondly, our device can have an enormous number of electrodes. For a visual prosthesis, this is important because the more electrodes you can have, the higher density of an image you can create in the brain. Thirdly, thanks to our robot, we can insert these electrodes deeply into the brain. Now, this is an important thing for a visual prosthesis because the human visual cortex is buried deeply in a fold in the medial face of the brain called the calcarine sulcus. In this image, I've highlighted the calcarine sulcus in red in an MRI. It contains a map of the visual world, the visual field. It's about a surface area equal to a credit card on each side. And if you unfold it and flatten it, you see that the image is inverted, it's upside down. But more interestingly, it's distorted so that the central part of the visual field, the fixation point, is greatly magnified. So for example, if you look at this image of Lincoln, if you look directly into his right eye, everything to the left of that fixation point is directed to your right visual cortex, and everything to the right goes to your left visual cortex. His eye, even though it's very small in the image, is magnified in the brain to occupy nearly a quarter of the surface area of the visual cortex. Over the last half century, visual neuroscientists have developed a profound understanding of visual processing in the brain. What's driven most of this research is recording from single cells in the cortex, usually of macaque monkeys. One of the seminal discoveries was that every cell in the visual cortex represents only a tiny part of the visual field. Your perception is made up of a mosaic of tiny receptive fields, each belonging to a single cell in your visual cortex. So if you record from one of these cells in a monkey, say in this location, you can find a very tiny region of the screen where a light stimulus will cause modulation of that neuron. Another location in visual cortex will have a location elsewhere on the screen, in this case in the lower visual field. These regions are called receptive fields. We've inserted our device into the visual cortex of 2 rhesus monkeys, whose names are Code and Dash. That means we can record activity from their visual cortex generated by their normal home environment as they roam around. But as we all know, monkeys love banana smoothie. That means we can easily teach them to fixate points on a screen and reward them. We can reward them very precisely because we can track the location of their eye using an infrared camera. One of the things this allows us to do is to plot the receptive fields for every neuron that we can record with a single device. Now, we do this by showing the animal a movie of random checkerboards whilst he fixates steadily on the screen. Then we take only the frames of the movie that generated a response in the cell and average them all together. This is a technique known as reverse correlation. It's generally used quite widely in visual neuroscience for this purpose. And this is an example of a receptive field plotted with this technique. The central cross is the fixation point, and you can see the little red and blue regions of excitatory and inhibitory receptive field. These regions give cortical cells some of their characteristic properties. So we can record all the receptive fields from all the electrodes at the same time. And if we take all these receptive fields and accumulate them together, overlap them, and place them on a computer monitor for scale at a typical viewing distance, you begin to get an idea of how much of the visual field we can cover with this preliminary device. Many of the receptive fields are close to the fovea, close to the fixation point. That's partly due to the magnification that I talked about of the fovea. But there's also a scattering of fields in the periphery. These are from recording sites deeper in the brain in the calcarine sulcus. So far, I've only talked about recording information from the cortex. But to produce a visual prosthesis, we need to stimulate. So if we stimulated the cells whose receptive fields are in this location, we would produce a perception of a flash in that location that only the monkey can see.
Ooh.
How do we know that the monkey sees it? How do we know what it looks like? Well, unfortunately, we can't ask them what they see, but we can train them to tell us something about that phosphine. We start by training the monkey to fixate a central point on the screen, like this white dot, and we start by presenting real visual stimuli on the screen and rewarding the monkey for making eye movements toward those stimuli. So here we flash a white dot, and the monkey makes an eye movement towards it, symbolized by the green arrow. We then choose another random location and reward the monkey for making an eye movement towards it. Once he's got good at this task, we can begin to interleave these real stimuli with electrical stimulation of electrodes and produce a phosphine. The monkey sees the flash and naturally makes a saccade towards it. This tells us not only where in the visual field the flash occurred, but we can also change the current that we inject in that electrode to see how often he makes that saccade, how noticeable or how big perhaps the stimulation, the phosphine is that we're producing. Let's look at code performing this task. I want to show you first at 1/4 speed. There's a visual flash, and he makes an eye movement towards it. The monkey can only see what is white on this screen. He can't see his own eye movement, and he certainly can't see when we stimulate. But here we stimulate, and he makes the same saccade to the same location because we stimulated the same electrode. Nothing appears on the screen at that time, and he has no other cue to make that eye movement. Let me show you this in real time. You can see monkeys like to work very quickly. And when we stimulate, he makes that saccade in real time.
That's wild.
And looks like he's had enough. So what I've shown you is a way to produce a phosphine in the visual field. This is not something new in visual neuroscience, but if you think about that phosphine as a single pixel in a visual image, all we need to do is scale up and produce a great many more pixels and have... This is a schematic of what a visual prosthesis using our N1 device might look like. A camera, the output from a camera would be processed by an iPhone, for example,